Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast.
Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Ray Zhou. Ray Zhou co-founded Affinity, a relationship intelligence CRM platform, with a friend and Stanford classmate. As CEO, Ray has led this fast-growing startup to raise $120 million and to serve more than 1,800 customers and 200 plus staff. Ray Zhou, the CEO of Affinity, believes every opportunity begins with a relationship and knows that business networks become unwieldy and harder to leverage as they grow larger. In response, he co-founded Affinity, whose eponymous CRM captures and organizes data exhaust from emails and calendars and combines it with other data sets to provide the relationship intelligence needed by decision makers in venture capital, investment banking, private equity, and consulting, industries where relationship building is foundational to deal making. A native of the San Francisco Bay Area, Ray met Affinity's co-founder, Subham Goel, at Stanford, where they were studying computer science. Their goal is to bring relationship intelligence to the world at large. Well, good afternoon, Ray. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here, Brian.
Absolutely. This is exciting. You've got some exciting things to talk about tonight. And I just love, like I said, getting to meet a new person online is great, but to actually hear their story and share it out with the world is just one of my biggest things I love to do. It's my passion. So, Ray, let's jump right into the questions here. Ray, as a CEO and co-founder of the relationship management platform Affinity, what's it like building a company with a friend? And maybe how has that relationship helped Affinity become the best workplace?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think maybe starting with a little bit of context, I co-founded Affinity, I think roughly 7 years ago with a close friend from college. Actually, the crazy thing was we had been, I think, beyond just being close friends. We built a lot of things when we were studying computer science at Stanford, which is where we originally met. Opposite sides of the world. I'm pretty much a California Bay Area lifey. I've grown up here for pretty much my entire life. And he is from India, actually, international student. And it was total serendipity in terms of how we got to know each other. And we've actually, we have been roommates for a very, very long time since then, well into, our years building Affinity. It actually took until the pandemic for us to not be living together anymore. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think to be very honest, when we got started, we had no idea how it would pan out, right? And I think I've advised a lot of other sort of founders, we wouldn't be where we are as a company without the help of amazing advisors and coaches and mentors. And I've talked to a lot of founders after that, trying to pass on some learnings and everything. And especially in the early days, when you're trying to build an initial company, find product market fit, it's all about the co-founder relationship. It's such a major source of whether the company succeeds or not. I think it's, if it's not the top reason, it's one of the top reasons why companies don't work out. To be very frank, when I started building, Affinity with Shubi, I don't think we could have even anticipated in many ways how compatible we were with each other. There's a lot in the dynamic, I think when I got to know him originally, the reason why we became really good friends in the first place was because of an alignment of core values. And that's really important in terms of co-founding relationships, is at the very core level, are the values aligned, right? For both of us, at least, we cared about a lot of the same things, even from coming from very different walks of life, a similar value for, really caring personally, both taking pride in the work that we do and caring about that, as well as for each other, and being there for each other in the hardest times. We cared a lot about, figuring out what's true. And so I think that's one of the things that really jived early on, which is, no egos in the room, right? It's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's all about finding out what's fundamentally true about the world, whether it's what the market is telling us or what's the best way to, orchestrate a go-to-market strategy or build a product would be. And so we saw every sort of disagreement as a sort of fundamental sort of collaborative exploration of what is true about the world. And so it was these more sort of intrinsic sort of values, I would say, that we shared, which brought us together, made us friends in the first place, beyond having built a lot of things together. That made the relationship work out really well, and I think having heard many other stories of other founders and challenges that, kind of that co-founder relationship can bring, I think it's one of the things that's worked out way better than either of us could have really expected. And speaking of the question of how has it helped, Affinity become, a recognized workplace? I wouldn't say necessarily that our goal from the beginning was to, build win a certain X number of awards or build a best workplace. But in many ways, I do think the culture of the company was really defined by that like early team and kind of starting from that co-founder relationship. So a lot of the core values they just talked about, like to care personally, to build an environment and a culture where people really care about their work, right? And it really matters, and where there's a relentless pursuit of like what is true. Are we thinking rigorously? It's not about who's right or who's wrong. We're trying to build this idea meritocracy where the best ideas win. I think those things like definitely still exist in the company today. And it's actually probably what, we talk a lot at Affinity about how people and culture are the most important thing to us. And I think everything that we've achieved together as a team, has kind of flowed downstream from those values. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of philosophy in terms of how some of those cultural elements, where they originated, where they came from. But I think it started with that relationship, and we were lucky it went well. Definitely there are cases where it doesn't, but it started with this alignment of values. That's kind of where it came from.
That's awesome. And I think, it's not that I think I've worked enough in enough companies, Fortune 500s, to know that the culture starts at the top, and that's the most important thing in the company. And I'm glad that you were able to establish that the foundation at the beginning makes a huge difference. So thank you for sharing. And Ray, in your recently released report, the Relationship Intelligence Benchmark Report, Unicorn Edition, Affinity found that top venture capital firms tap into their relationships to catch more unicorns. Can you explain why this is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, maybe the first, there's just a very quick primer to, on Affinity, itself is, we build the leading relationship intelligence CRM, and it is the, CRM relationship management platform of choice for pretty much the entire universe of private capital, venture capital investors, private equity investors, corporate teams, accelerators, incubators, sort of there's an entire landscape of asset managers that are powered by the platform. And I think what we've realized, is that this was, already true, but it just only became exacerbated, with the pandemic. But relationships really are essential, when it comes to getting deals done. And there's no environment where that's more true than in sort of the race to find and fund the next unicorn as an investor, right? And because of, in particular, the venture capital sector's extensive use of Affinity, one of the things that we got to do is we got to take this, more behind the scenes look of what does it take to power those deals. And so essentially what we realized was if you just look at the raw numbers, the metrics, the stats, so the network size of the top VC firms, like what are the firms out there that invested in the most unicorns, over the last 5 years, they averaged an average collective network size of 88,700 contacts per firm. So that's, roughly or almost 2,300 contacts per person. It's 22% more than the average across all VC firms. So that's kind of an example in terms of, at least from an average perspective, like there's this correlation between the size of the network and how much time and energy you invest into it, and the probability or at least the outcome of investing in a unicorn company. Other interesting kind of metrics that we've learned as a part of that report that we shared. Those top firms, they also make an average of over 2,500 introductions annually, which is pretty crazy. Maybe even more crazy, top VCs send more than 90,000 emails and have over 18,000 meetings per year. And this is all while tracking on average 6,000 deals each month. So these are massive numbers, right? I mean, it is basically, great investors. They are living and breathing in email, calendar, especially in this like very digital sort of, pandemic world that we're living in right now. And what we found was per user, the top VC firms, they manage 26 deals per month. That's compared to an average of 24 across all VC firms. They meet with people outside their firm 69 times per month compared to 42 on average across all VC firms. And they sent an average of 454 emails per month compared to 175 across the rest of the VC landscape. And so it's this intentionality, basically, like relationships obviously are we think they're really sort of the core asset, the most valuable thing that every firm owns. That's the root source of opportunity for really all deal making, but in particular, like getting connected to incredible companies that, especially unicorn companies. So it's not a surprise to us at all, at least, over the years, that you've seen such strong correlations between how much time, how much intentionality the best investors put into, really growing and maintaining their network, thinking about relationships as this really fundamentally valuable thing that they have to invest in, and the outcomes that they drive.
That's amazing. And I appreciate you sharing that report. And I had no idea there was that much work behind all this that makes things happen, but that certainly makes sense. So, Ray, from this report, it's obvious that relationship intelligence is critical. How does Infinity's technology enable relationship intelligence?
Yeah. So I think it helps us maybe start just by defining, what relationship intelligence is. It's not, a super novel concept, but it's basically the idea that the root source of every organization's relationship data doesn't live inside any of the traditional sort of static systems that you think of, like a static spreadsheet or a static contact book or static CRM or a static professional network like LinkedIn, where every sort of point of data has to be entered by hand, manually. What we realized, and this is the concept of relationship intelligence, is actually the real source of truth about relationship data lives inside all of these sort of digital footprints, all this data exhaust, as we call it, that's spewed out by tools and systems that people are already using. So every email, every sort of meeting, every digital interaction, we're doing a call right now, right? There's sort of this footprint that gets built of each relationship. And that's where Affinity comes in. So our technology, our relationship intelligence platform, what it does is it captures all of these points of data exhaust automatically. We structure them and leverage them to develop all these deeper and more meaningful insights about relationships to help our users close more deals, build more meaningful networks, manage sort of their networks and their relationships and their pipelines a lot more automatically. And so, we pride ourselves with being able to offer our customers a constantly improving product. We've leveraged that data in many ways to build an incredible platform. A couple of examples. Last year, we recently launched the Affinity Analytics sort of platform. And recently, as a part of that, Affinity Analytics Alerts, which basically helps automate and streamline updates on KPIs to help, improve goal tracking for deals. Another thing that we've done is there's a lot of magic and, incredible insights you can build on top of sort of this raw data. And so we recently released Affinity Data Organizations, to our broader customer base. These data sets basically help our customers identify and qualify potential deals a lot more quickly, gain deeper insights into the people and organizations they're evaluating, understand sort of the performance momentum of potential investments, and it's all doable from within sort of Affinity CRM. And so we're really kind of continuously investing in the next quantum leaps, in terms of what you can do with relationship intelligence. But it solves a lot of problems. It's obviously, it's our passion as a company, and we think it's going to enable the next, major leap for, a lot of industries that are driven by relationships in terms of what they can do with the data they already have access to, but they don't realize they own.
Thank you, Ray. And I appreciate your CRM being, in my words, a very unique type of CRM that actually focuses on that relationship. So thank you. And Ray, last question here. Can you share something from your career experience that would be helpful for those looking to grow their career in technology or entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Man, so many things. I feel like we made so many mistakes along the way as we built Affinity, and they were just really humbling moments. Maybe for folks that are interested in diving into the realm of entrepreneurship or starting a company, and I think this is a really useful framework both in terms of how to personally approach your growth as a founder, as well as what to look for in the people that you're hiring, especially in the early days. There's this really great quote that my advisor at Stanford from the computer science department used to always say. He did these like stories where before the weekend he'd share a learning or thought for the weekend, and one of them was a little bit of slope makes up for a lot of y-intercept. It's kind of coming from this kind of a math analogy where the idea is that you think of like a linear equation, right? Like the slope is how fast the y-axis is changing as a function of x, right? The y-intercept is where are you starting? On one hand, we think about sort of that early team. It's very tempting very often to just bring in people who have a really high y-intercept, may not have a super high slope. And what you really want is the opposite. You want to have people where even if they haven't done the thing, like to build the exact same product in the exact same markets or industries, they need to have sort of that hunger to learn, to like really jump in, to not be afraid about trying out new things. And, the open-mindedness, the player mindset, the growth mindset to really quickly adapt. Because that's what a company is. If you think about what you're doing as a company, you're fundamentally building something that's new, right? That the world presumably hasn't seen before. And so in a very similar way, like if you are doing something that's new, there's going to be situations that arise that are fundamentally new. And so it takes that like very adaptive mindset. And I think that's the same sort of approach that you have to take as a founder as well, right? Which is sometimes like, founders, folks that are considering building a company, they'll come to me and say, well, like I'm not sure if I want to start this business yet. Maybe I should, go work in a whatever product management job or an engineering management job at a bigger company for X number of years, so I can build up the skill sets that I need, and what have you. See these things through. The truth is, like, you're not going to be able to anticipate everything. You're going to be able to plan for everything. Like, what's more important than like building up and accruing like the biggest flight intercept before you kind of take the leap of faith and start a company is really thinking about, like, on the more intrinsic level, like one level below that, like how excited are you? How daunted are you, by learning new things, right? If there's a problem that you haven't solved before, does that kind of push you away? Or is it something you kind of lean into to say, like, every other problem in the world, everything in the world that humanity has built was built by people that are not that much different from me. And, just like anyone else, I can be smart enough to go try to figure it out, and apply my intuition and see where it takes me. So I think that would probably be like my biggest learning. I think the takeaway is both, for folks that are, interested in getting started, like, this is probably the right way to think about your own growth. You don't have to have all the answers from day one. And it's also probably a good way to think about the early team that you build, because like we talked about earlier, that ends up having such a massive sort of ripple downstream impact on the culture of the company you're going to end up creating in the grander scheme of things. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. I appreciate you sharing that. You've got such like I said, a very, your head's squarely sitting on your shoulders. You've got a lot of things going for you right now at your point in your career and early in your career. So I appreciate everything that you shared this evening. And Ray, last thing, just want to let you know, it was a pleasure having you on today. And I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, it's great to be on, and enjoyed it.
Bye for now.